Hello everyone, and welcome to a very unexpected spot review. I'm pretty sure most people can agree with me when I say that there are a bunch of other areas in this game that have a much higher priority than Sosons to get a spot review for me to cover it. But nevertheless, here we are talking about Sosons in 2019, if this area is worth anything and if you should visit it. I would say I never really intended to test this spot, it just so happened for me to do a spot review on it because you guys keep recommending me stuff like Akman or Manshaum, areas that people actively try to gear themselves to get to grind in the first place, and they look forward to those areas. Yet here I am talking about Sosons, an area that has existed at the very least since I started playing this game, and since then it got almost no buffs whatsoever, except at some point when the developers increased the monster respawn rate for Sosons. Still, let's talk about it in the general spot review fashion, see what this spot can offer, and all of the experience rates and the money per hour values. I'm gonna begin by saying that I will try at least somewhat to make this video shorter than usual, just because there's no use discussing in depth about an area that most people already know everything about. If you don't know about Sosons, you are literally new to the game and you played it for less than a couple of weeks, because everyone at some point went to Sosons, and these days people only go there to boost other people to level 56, or maybe to grind until they get 57 or 58. So why did I test it? Because a couple of weeks ago I got so bored of my slow wizards playstyle that I felt like I was in the right mood to make a mistake, more commonly known as mystics. When the class was released, I hated it. I couldn't even get it to 55 for the free rewards, but now after playing it for a while, I just felt like playing some class with punches and martial arts and stuff like that. And yeah, it's enjoyable to grind with. I got it all the way up to level 60 after doing my main questline to get all those inventory slots that I needed and transferring my weight limit gear from my main. I believe 2 weeks ago I didn't even have the weight limit gear finished. It didn't have all of the expensive crystals in it, but still, with around 1000 weight limit without anything purchased on this new character, I decided maybe I should use Sosons as my main grinding spot to get it from 57 to level 60, and that's what I did. 2 weeks ago I intended to main Mystic, and if not main, at least make it an alt for grinding, and so I wanted to get as many skill points as possible. I used those 530% experience scrolls that we got a couple of weeks ago on it, and by the end, when I was level 60, I did have soft cap skill points. I chose Sosons because I remembered this area was the best for skill experience. I always recommended Sosons for skill experience, and from my past experience, I knew that if I want my Mystic to have as many skill points as possible, I should just grind Sosons. And why not do two things at once and test it in the same time? That's why this video exists. So let me begin with my gear. I'm gonna just say I had weight limit armor. You don't need a lot of gear. I had, I believe, Pry or Duo green armor. My weapons were also green grade, but I have very good accessories, so my AP was around 200. You don't need 200 AP for this place. I believe the cap was 160 or 170. If you have 180 AP, that should be more than enough to one-shot these monsters. In general, at low levels, what matters most is the skill level and not the AP. If you are level 60 with all of your awakening skills maxed out, you can have a lot less AP and still achieve the same result. So yeah, I spent my levels from 57 to 60 at Sosons. There's my gear out of the way, and for the rotation I used the Sosons main rotation, which I'm gonna show playing in the background if it didn't already start, just for the sake of those few people who actually don't know what Sosons is, because they probably never went there for whatever reason. Most of us, as I said, already know everything about Sosons, so there's no point going in depth about it. The area itself is very unpopulated these days for good reason. It's not a very good spot, except the skill experience. So not a lot of people still grind here. I didn't have issues grinding the main rotation. And this might change when Shy comes out. I myself am planning to make one. I might even end up maining it. After a few weeks go by, I'm pretty sure the spot will go back to normal, but when Shy comes out it might become a little bit more populated. Otherwise, in general, very uncontested, you shouldn't have much of an issue grinding here, but be prepared to come with a lot of weight limit and inventory spaces. For experience rates, I'm gonna start actually with my trash per hour because that should go first. So if I look on my Excel file, you will see that almost every single session is about an hour because I use the experience scrolls. That's the main reason. If I didn't have experience scrolls, it would still be close to 1 hour, because after about an hour and let's say 10 or 15 minutes, I would either be overweight from the trash because I could no longer overstack it, or I had too many armor pieces in my inventory and other similar issues. So in general, if you want to pick a spot to grind for like 6 hours or 4 hours at once, this is not it. At Sosons, after 1 or 1.5 hours, you are forced to leave all the way to a city with a storage to actually get rid of all of those armors that you save up because you want to sell them to the marketplace. So after each of these sessions, I would usually either put an end to that day. This test took a while, I wasn't exactly in a hurry with it, or I would go to Heidel, take a break, and then return for a second session. You definitely need to take breaks after every hour or so to empty that inventory. For trash per hour, the first run was slower than the others, maybe because I was adjusting to the spot. The average was about 6.2 thousand trash per hour with my tier 3 pets. You could say they are all tier 3 because I have 3 tier 3s, 1 tier 2 and 1 tier 4. So on average, let's say full tier 3 pets. And if you look at the very last session, 6.7 thousand trash per hour, it says Ranger Run. Also you can see I started at level 58. I thought it was 57, but here it says 58. I had one session where I grinded the B spot because the main rotation was taken, and I ended the test at level 60. The last run is on my Ranger just because she is level 61 and to test experience on her, again for the consistency of this series. For experience, let's talk about that one Ranger run. I basically put all of her experience buffs in Excel. The screenshots showed me, what I had. You know how the experience tests go. Basically, this is the result. This is the only thing you have to pay attention to. These two numbers with 0.080% per hour normal experience and 1 skill point level up and so on for skill experience per hour. This is at her 6.7 thousand trash per hour clearing speed, which again may or may not be faster than my Mystic. I would say it's identical. From the way the monsters were respawning, I would always complete the entire rotation and the monsters would be either fully respawned or one or two of them were still respawning. That was the case for both my Ranger and my Mystic, so I would say they were pretty much identical. But since my Ranger was dashing, I had some stamina issues on my Ranger. At times I was running out of stamina, or I noticed that my Mystic is dashing significantly faster between packs than my Ranger. So maybe because she moved slightly slower, my pets had slightly more time to pick up trash, and maybe that's why the trash per hour is higher. This area has a lot of monsters, the mob density is very good, so having better pets like tier 4s, full tier 4s will obviously increase your trash, while having only tier 1 pets will obviously decrease your trash per hour quite a lot, just because there's a lot of trash left on the ground. After that, I proceeded to make this chart. I converted the experience rate from my Ranger to my average trash per hour, to basically say that these are the experience rates that my Mystic would get, but I never really ended up using these for anything, just because in the past I always tested experience on my Ranger or on my Wizard. So in the end I still used my Ranger clearing speed that last run for the 350% comparison. So let's get into that chart. Basically, considering the case where you would have 350% experience rate with buffs, how would this place compare to the other ones that I already tested in the past? I would say not very well for experience and very well for skill experience. You will immediately notice it has 0 on Marnie Stones, it has no Marnie Stones, and because of that, if you look at Fogans, Nagas and Bandits, you will notice that level 61 is the best one for Marnie Stones, because at level 61 Marnie Stones have the best scaling possible, to a point where even with 350% experience rate you get more experience from Marnie Stones than you get from the actual monsters after applying the buffs to them. So without a Marnie Stone it will lose a lot of experience obviously, and the monster experience itself is basically identical to what I got at Proti Cave, so it doesn't, even in monster experience alone, it doesn't compare to Fogans, Bandits or Nagas, and overall it's really low on the chart. It's basically close to what I got at Piraku Jail. So experience wise at level 61 not worth it, maybe between 56 and 58. I could recommend it because at those levels you either don't have Marnie Stones or they have a very low scaling. So between 56 and 58 maybe come here, otherwise don't. Skill experience, at least I learned something from this series if it comes down to skill experience, because I used to always recommend Sosans for skill experience. I always said it's the best in the game. Nowadays, at least after this test, I can see that just look at Bandits. It's that simple. I tested Bandits and Sosans both on my Ranger, on both of them trying my best to, grind them somewhat fast, and Sosans is just barely any faster than Bandits, which means that I should no longer recommend Sosans. If the normal experience is that low, I should just recommend Bandits, because the skill experience is basically identical. You don't get anything, any huge gain to be worth going to Sosans for that. I should point out the skill experience was always tested at soft cap skill points, so 1.6 something thousand skill points. So these are all values took at the soft cap skill experience rate. And that should bring an end to the experience part of the video, and let's talk about the money per hour. For money per hour, this area has 3 different types of trash. I didn't always exchange the black one, I forgot what name it has, but the black trash, I will show it most definitely on the screen at some point now. For black trash you have to go to a different NPC to exchange it, and I didn't always feel like it was worth my time, or I was too lazy to go there, because I would always exchange only one of it for 1 million, one ingot, and if I sell that same trash to the NPC, it would be maybe 600 or 700,000 silver, something like that. So it wasn't always worth the time. If I look at where is it, ingots, the ingots column has 9 at most on those 2 runs when I did exchange it, when I did exchange the black trash. If I didn't, I would always make about 8 ingots per hour. That was my average, without any loot scrolls and without a Kamasil blessing. So basically just a regular grinding without Arsha as well. The cash column includes the cash dropped from monsters, plus what I would get by selling to the NPC, some of the trash crystals, some of the trash green weapons, and also the leftover trash items that I couldn't exchange for ingots. Yes, this place is so outdated that you actually have to exchange trash for ingots. Blackstone weapons and armors, these don't exactly drop that much from monsters. Most of them come from the enhanced armor drops and weapon drops. And the only other thing I would like to mention is that I got 2 enhanced, I have 2 sessions where I sold some enhanced pieces to the marketplace. There was a plus 15 Crea weapon, plus 12 Grunil shoes, and plus 13 Grunil gloves. Those I sold to the marketplace because they were either sold out or low in quantity, and they gave me more profit than if I would have extracted the blackstones out of them. In the rest, I kept all of the Grunil drops in my inventory to sell them to the marketplace. Forbidden books, they don't really drop that much in average. I got 12 in almost 10 hours, so not even 1.5 average per hour. Mystical shards were actually interesting. I got 4 of them in almost 10 hours, whereas on other spots I wouldn't even get 1, or I would get at most 1 in 10 hours. So either I got lucky with the drops, or it has a higher drop rate. The same goes for petals. I got 8 of them in 10 hours, which seems higher than usual. The trash gems, sometimes I would sell them to the NPC because they are not worth that much and they take inventory space. Other times I would keep them in my inventory. They are not really worth that much, but still. I got 1